Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to take a look at the AI tools within D5 Render. We'll take a look at what the tools are, how you can use them. I'll throw out a few tips based on my own experience with them. And then most importantly, we'll look at them through a critical lens and ask, are these tools actually functionally useful, or are they somewhat just a bit of a novelty? All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So here we are in our test scene for AI tool number 1. Now that is going to be D5's AI atmosphere match, which is effectively what it sounds like. Image effectively using AI neural tools, and then trying to extrapolate the lighting from that image and then effectively apply that to your D5 scene. All right, so you can see we've got in front of us sort of a winery design. This was something I did a couple of years ago, but you can see we've got some ground, building, and plenty of sky, and it's the sky that we're going to focus on. So right now we are lighting our scene with the geo and sky. It's one of the two systems, the default systems of lighting your scene in D5 Render. Now, I'm going to bounce over to the HDRIs really quickly, and just a note on this, there's no one that's actually better or worse than the other. You know, use whichever system looks best to you or makes your work look best. I'm going to move myself a little bit out of the way here. And in order to access the atmosphere match, what we actually need to do is just go up to the top right of the screen. Now, you'll see this little sort of AI. This seems to be like the de facto AI button that they're showing, or icon for 2.7. Kind of looks like a squiggly little bunch of stars. If we hover over this, this will say AI Atmosphere Match. Now, I'm just going to click on this guy. This is the really important part, which is the upload reference image. So I'm going to run through a couple of different versions, and I'll show you the effect this has. So firstly, I'm going to load up one reference image. And I managed to get a number of these from unsplash.com. All right, let's load up image number 1. Once you have your sky image, and you can see I've got this blue and sort of kind of blue and pink image loaded up, you can then basically just ask D5 to go ahead and start generating the sky. Once the D5 AI atmosphere has finished effectively generating the image, you can go ahead and click Apply. Now, once D5 has generated what it thinks the sky is, you can click the Apply button here on the right, and you'll see it says Style is being generated. Okay, by default, this is not looking too great in this scene, so I can close this out, and let's take a quick look at what's actually going on. So let's click on the environment. You can see it has applied a HDRI, an 8K one. It's a little bit too bright right now, so let's bring the lightness down, and we're just going to bring the exposure down. There we go. And now if I bring this down, you can see pretty much what it's actually done. So let's load up our reference image real quick. I just want to show you. So here's our reference sky, and here's what D5 has done. Now, to me, I think that is really very, very impressive. It's not immediately perfect, and you will actually have to tweak some of the settings, but all in all, that is really impressive stuff. Now, one other thing you'll notice about this, sorry for the bouncy camera there, is that it actually seems to apply this effect as a LUT or lookup table. And you can see it actually says AI here, but all in all, that's really cool. Now, let's try a different image. All right, everybody. So what I've done now is reset all of the environment criteria, including the exposure, and removed any LUTs, and just kind of reset everything back to 0. Let's try a different sky and see how well D5 works. We have a very different type of sky. It's got a lot more blue in it, got some white clouds, and a bit of greenery. Now, this is kind of consistent with what D5's actual documentation recommends, which is that you go for a sky that has, or basically an image that has a large amount of sky visible in it. Now, let's see what it's actually done. I'm going to again close out the atmosphere match, and you can see this looks really nice. So let's just take a look at the sky. I think this is just absolutely kind of stunning. It has applied a 8K HDRI. We still have controls for the background, so we can still kind of adjust the overall brightness, and we can adjust the strength of the light. It's also added one of the artificial suns, which you can normally toggle this on and off with HDRI anyway, and I usually do just for that extra light. But I think that just looks absolutely brilliant. And if we go to the effects tab, you'll actually notice it has again applied that AI token LUT, and we can dial up, take it all the way to the left, remove it, or take it all the way to the right to actually increase the effect. All in all, this is really, really quite stunning stuff. Now, let's try one more just to see how it works. Now, the last one I wanted to show you is a rainier image. And the original is going to look a little bit like this. Again, 2/3 sky and water down here. And let's see how D5 interpreted this. You can see it has matched a similar, albeit not quite perfect. So you can see this was our reference. And you can kind of see what D5 did with this. Didn't read necessarily all of the vividness, but, you know, not terrible. But what's really interesting is it also turned on the precipitation. In other words, it read the water in the image. It seems to have interpreted the ocean or seawater as actual rain on the ground, but I think that's really, really incredible. It's probably a little too strong, a little bit heavy-handed with the rain, but all in all, this is really, really impressive. All right, I'm just going to go back and click on the effect here. And again, just looking at the AI intensity. Okay, so the question then, and what we asked at the start was, quite simply, looking at these things critically, is the AI atmosphere match useful? Or will you actually use it? Or is it at best a gimmick? And I think that's kind of an important question for these AI tools. And when it comes to the atmosphere match, I can't help but think that, yes, this is really, really both useful. And even looking at it critically, it's not going to get you 100% of the way there lighting your scene, but it does a really good job. I would put it at somewhere between 70 and 80%. All in all, for something that's only on version maybe, I think it's on its second iteration right now, coming in 2.6, updated 2.7. I think this is really, really impressive technology, and I will be using this in the future. The next AI tool we want to look at is actually one of the earlier ones, not in the newer batch of AI tools. I've gone ahead and just set up another quick scene here, just so we have something to look at while we work. And what I want to look at is D5's AI tool that allows us to generate material maps or texture maps if all you have is a diffuse. Now, this is going to be quite common if, for example, you're working with, say, maybe a SketchUp to D5 workflow. And a lot of the decorative objects, for example, this like metal, thing, are going to come in with a diffuse map, but they probably won't have anything else. In other words, they were not set up with a PBR workflow in mind. So in order to get this to work, hit I on the keyboard, and just bring up our little eyedropper. We're going to sample this material. Now, you can see over here on the right, the base color is white, and the base color map is going to be this one from SketchUp. Now, one thing I really like about this is you can actually right-click and go File Location. And you can actually see here, it'll actually bring up the actual location for this texture map, which again came over from SketchUp. And I'm opening this up in just the default sort of photo editor with Windows. And you can always go in here, for example, and resize and just actually take a look at how big this image actually is. The other thing to note, though, is there are no material maps to this. So we can see over here on the right, there's no normal, there's nothing plugged into the specular, roughness, metallic, or AO. So in order to get these AI generated maps, all we have to do is go up to this little AI icon right here, and you can see AI generated texture maps. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this and let D5 do its thing. And in a few seconds, you can see that D5 has generated a number of maps. Now, it's not looking massively better. Now, there's a couple of reasons that we'll get into for that, but this is still pretty cool all in all. It has generated a correct normal map, and it has also generated a roughness map. And you can see by toggling that to the left where there's 0 roughness and taking it to the right, you can see the material takes on a more feasible texture. Now, one thing you'll notice though is that and I know by looking at this that this should really be a metallic texture, and D5 has not generated a metallic texture for that. You can, of course, take the slider up just a little bit. Don't recommend cranking it all the way because it's going to end up looking a bit like that. And strictly speaking, metals shouldn't be, even in rendering programs, aren't really supposed to be set to 100% pure metallic, because nothing is. But you can kind of just put this up a little bit there, just to give you some of that metallic reflection. Now the AO layer, I'm not getting a huge amount from that, but all in all, the cool thing with this being metallic now, it should respond a little bit better to light. Now the other really cool thing about this is you could actually go in here if you wanted, and again, right click, file location, you can actually edit these maps. So you can see here we've got our albedo, which is the modern form of diffuse. We've got our AO, height, normal, and roughness. You could go in and just maybe make some changes and save over this in Photoshop, for example, and actually have more control. It's still really, really cool, if not. Again, D5 is going to have a hard time identifying objects that are comprised of multiple materials. So for example, if part of this was metal and part was plaster, it's definitely going to struggle. And you may have to go in there and just maybe adjust the roughness or create your own black and white metallic map. You're unlikely to place this, use these AI generated textures really on any surfaces that are very, very large. But if you have an object that just looks flat or doesn't have the shininess or kind of the material properties that you like, yeah, I do think you might find this useful. Its overall use case, though, is probably pretty limited. D5 has so many materials, and there's so many available through Quixel or through iMesh or through all of the other material sort of libraries out there. You probably shouldn't struggle to find one that you can load up into D5. It's never going to replace a handmade group of texture maps. It just won't. But all in all, it's got limited case uses, but it's still, I think it's pretty cool. It is just, however, a little bit limited. The next two AI tools we want to look at are two of the more recent ones. And we have Ultra HD Texture and Make Seamless. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the Make Seamless. So over in the right-hand corner of our scene, we've got a little pot. Now, this is a pot model that just came in from the SketchUp warehouse. There is no UVs assigned to it, and I've just given it a random texture that I got from, again, unsplash.com, which, by the way, do check out. Really great website for free images. You'll notice that the texture has got a very obvious repeating seam. It's both, it is not a tileable texture, and it's got an actual pretty pronounced gradient going on. You can see this is what the original looks like. All right, so what we're going to do is click on the Make Seamless button here. You can see, again, we've got this little icon for sort of AI, neural tools. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on Make Seamless. Now, this is going to bring up this image. We can make things seamless horizontally or vertically. So in this case, let's go ahead and I'm going to just disable it from left to right horizontally. I'm going to try and make this seam, this vertical seam, which is actually, in my case, it's actually running horizontally on the object because it's rotated 90 degrees. But let's go ahead and make this seamless and see what happens. And you can see the results right there. Now, you can see over here on the right, it says generated. And there is an option to undo it if you don't like it, or you can just go ahead and click OK, and I'm going to click OK. That looks pretty good. Actually, if you scroll over here on the left, this is actually more of a projection issue, I think, or a modeling issue, I think, more than anything. Now, but the actual seam itself, I think that's really, really, really cool. It has actually kind of done a really good job blurring. Now, I should also point out, though, earlier, I tried running this using both axes and the results were a little bit more iffy. So, buyer beware kind of thing. You might need to try it on multiple settings and step back if it doesn't work. I do think that looks pretty good. You can tell there's still a bit of a seam there. It's, it looks like, a 30-second clone stamp Photoshop attempt. But, if your camera's this far back, you don't get the harsh, abrupt line across here. It's still visible, but it looks a little bit more intentional, like it's a part of the actual design. This is, I'm going to say, if you're old enough, kind of like me, to remember trying to do this in Photoshop, where you had to like offset the four corners and then use clone stamp to make a texture map for like a character or for a prop to make it actually seamless, then this does seem really, really impressive. I do think it's quite clever. in terms of practical uses, that's sort of where I have an issue with this. If we want to look at these tools critically, is the Make Seamless tool good? Not really. Here's the thing. If you have a texture map, I think, like this, and I've stepped all the way back to how it looks in its default state, you know, and you need it, you really need it for whatever reason to look better, then you've got two other options. The first thing you could actually do in D5 is just come in here and turn on triplanar projections. Now, that will help in about 90% of cases. It's not doing a great job with this one right now, but you could also kind of stretch and scale the texture a little bit to get what you want. So that will help in a lot of cases. It's just turning on triplanar projection. That will kind of fix a lot of issues. The other way to fix this, though, is really just you need to know how to UV unwrap an object. And I understand that for a lot of people, if you're coming at this from like maybe an architecture background and not a 3D background, you might not understand what that term means, or you might not know how to go about doing it. But it's definitely a skill worth learning to pick up, and you can do it quite easily in Blender. You could quite simply just export this object, UV unwrap it in Blender, and then assign your textures, and they should align correctly if you've done the UVs correctly. So in terms of practical uses, Make Seamless, I don't really know if this is going to be something you do quite often. It's cool. It really is cool. It's just not ideal, honestly. And the results I've seen have been a little bit 50-50. The next thing we want to look at is the Ultra HD textures. Now, I think these were introduced in D5 version 2.7. And so to take a look at these, I'm going to just left click with the eyedropper on this texture map. Now, this is, I believe, if memory serves, I set the scene up a couple of days ago. I think this is just a really low resolution, kind of crappy wooden texture that comes from SketchUp. It's pretty low quality, and you can see how meh it actually looks. So in order to get this to work, all we have to do is, again, turn on these AI tools. Just click on this little button, and we've got the Ultra HD texture. I'm going to left click and let that do its thing. Now, you can see Ultra HD texture generated. Confirm to apply, and I'm going to say confirm. That is really, really impressive. I'm going to step back really quickly, and I want to show you this. Again, using the eyedropper tool, I'm just going to right click, open the file location. Okay, and this is it. You can see this is a wood material texture floor JPEG. If I click on resize image, oh man, that is really, really small. Yeah, that's just staggeringly small. Now, what I'm going to do, again, just bounce back to D5 really quickly. Ultra HD textures. Confirm. I'm going to right click, file location. Wow. And there you can see on the left is the original super low resolution. And on the right, we actually have a, it's made it, but like, it's not quite 4 times higher, but a little bit better. That's just unbelievably cool. Is it good enough yet? No, not quite. But what if we try it again? Ultra HD textures again. Okay, that is absolutely staggering. We ran the Ultra sort of HD texture twice on the same texture, and effectively just, you know, it's gone from not quite doubling exactly, but taking it all the way up to almost just on the cusp. Yeah, it's a 4096 on the height. It's not quite 4096 by 4096, but that is absolutely staggering. Now, it's not perfect. You can kind of see, if we go back to D5 render really quickly, you can see it. Yeah, it's definitely, the fidelity is just staggeringly improved. It really is. Now, the other really cool thing about this is we can hit the AI generated texture maps on top of this Ultra HD texture. And now look at that. It's provided a normal map, roughness, and an AO slider. It's not perfect. You can see kind of there's a lot of warble in the image. Like it's a little bit too much, but I mean, that is absolutely incredible. Now, in terms of looking at it critically, is it useful? Yes. Under limited case uses, yes, I would say. I'll give you an example. I recently finished a barn dominium project where the client had sort of shown interest in a specific floor type. It was a wooden floor material from a company called Home Depot. Now, I wasn't able to get high-res texture of that, but I was able to sort of download a relatively low-resolution version of this wood floor texture and effectively do what we just did. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to be able to say, hey, this is the floor material that you requested or showed interest in. Here's how I think it would look in your living room. In this case, it was like an entertainment room or whatever. All right, everybody, almost at the end of this video. And if you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Really, really do appreciate it. And really do appreciate people writing stuff in the comments. Generally, feedback has been really, really positive. So thank you so much. Now, two last things we want to talk about. Two last AI tools that are a part of the D5 ecosystem, but are not completely integrated just yet. Now, the first one is not a particularly new one. It is D5 High. And I'm just going to pop this up really quickly. So D5 High is basically the D5 Dev's version of an AI image generator. Now, it's been out for about a year now, but it is still on sort of a wait list. And so you can go to the d5next.ai website and you can sign up and join the wait list. Now, I'm not on this wait list. I'm not really a huge fan of purely AI generated imagery for kind of a whole bunch of reasons. But, this seems to be, from what I've watched in other YouTubers, pretty much about as good as any AI, generating tool. It's a little unusual, I think, in my mind, to have it sort of hidden behind a wait list. I think at one point it was just available on Discord, but I'm not sure if that's changed now. But really the more important thing is the plans, and you can see this right now, which is to integrate D5 High, so an AI-powered image generating tool for ArcViz, and integrate it directly within D5 Render. How you interpret this may depend a little bit on your view on AI images. If you think they're a great tool for look dev or ideas or mood dev, then this could be really, really fantastic. It will keep everything in-house, and hopefully you won't have to go to Midjourney or DALL-E or Firefly or wherever you want to go, and you can just stay working within D5. This could be very, very, very cool. If you're critical of AI-generated tools, you may think that this is effectively a fancier Pinterest board or reference or mood board, which is kind of somewhat my view on this a little bit. Now, the second tool we want to mention, in saying that though, very curious to see where we go with this in the future. Now, the second tool I want to mention is actually, again, sort of hidden away at the moment. If we click this text to 3D button, again, you can see it's using the same sort of AI iconography. We can click on that. Now, another problem with this is, by the way, these look really, really cool. And I do kind of love the idea of just AI-generated things for whatever you need. In saying that, bizarrely, this is also hidden away under a free trial application. Now, I'm slightly puzzled by. The text to 3D was, to the best of my knowledge, advertised as a part, albeit a work in progress, of D5 version 2.7. To me, it's sort of odd that you would actually even have this as something you can access and then still have to apply for a free trial, which right now I applied last week and I don't think it's actually gone anywhere, which is kind of interesting. But it also begs the question of, if you're already a professional D5 user or a paid user, then why are you being asked to sort of effectively act as a beta tester for a tool that's already apparently just built into D5? And so again, this one's a little bit curious. I'm not going to discount this entirely yet. I do think when this is made available to me, I'm absolutely going to experiment with it. It could be really, really cool. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which will hopefully come a little bit sooner. All right.